All right, let's get into it. Today, we're diving deep into the world of technical SEO. We're going to frame this as a bit of a debate, a classic showdown, really. The developer, who's focused on building an amazing user experience, versus the SEO, who lives and dies by the data of what Google can actually see and understand.
So here's how we're going to break it all down. First, we'll tackle crawlability and indexing, the fight just to get a bot's attention. Then we'll run the rendering gauntlet, talking all things JavaScript. After that, it's architecture and authority, which is all about directing power through your site. And finally, we'll hit core web vitals, where user experience and SEO finally shake hands. Then we'll put it all together.
Okay, first things first, we have to start at the absolute foundation, which is, can a search engine even find your content? This is the core of crawlability. And honestly, it's where the developer and the SEO usually have their first argument.
Right, let's just cut to the chase. From the engineering side of the table, I have to ask, is crawl budget a real thing? Seriously? Or is it just a convenient myth that gets pulled out when someone needs an excuse for why a page isn't ranking?
A myth? Oh, it is absolutely real. And for any large website, it's not just real, it is everything. When you mismanage it, you're not just losing a few pages. The data shows you could be losing, well, this much.
So yeah, that staggering 99% isn't theoretical. It comes from a real-world Botify study on a massive 10 million-page e-commerce site. What was happening? Well, Google's bots were getting lost, crawling just endless combinations of product filters and pages that didn't even exist anymore. So it wasn't that the content was bad, it was just completely invisible. This is not a myth, my friend. This is a multi-million-dollar problem.
And that brings us to one of the most common mistakes people make. Think about it like this. Using your robots.txt file is like putting a do not enter sign on a door. It saves your crawl budget because Googlebot doesn't even bother opening it. But a no index tag, that spends your budget. That's like letting the bot into the room, letting it look around, and then telling it, hey, forget everything you just saw. For a big site, understanding that difference is absolutely crucial.
All right, so let's say we get the bot in the right door. The next big question is, what does it actually see? And this brings us to probably the biggest debate in technical SEO today: JavaScript. It's what makes the modern web work, but it also creates this huge gap between the user experience and what Googlebot sees, at least at first.
You have to understand, Google doesn't process JavaScript all at once. It happens in waves. In the first wave, it just grabs the basic HTML. That's it. Then, later, and it could be seconds or it could be minutes later, it puts that page into a massive queue to be rendered. That's when it actually runs the JavaScript. Only after that second wave does it see the full content and index it. The key takeaway here? It's not instant.
And see, that delay is exactly why we have this conversation. As the developer, my job is to build an incredible interactive experience for a person. We use frameworks like React to make things fast and dynamic. The entire thing is built for the user sitting at their screen.
I get it, I really do. But that's the core of the problem. While your user sees that beautiful, finished product on the left, look at what Googlebot gets on that first pass. It's that code on the right, an empty shell. It's just an empty box waiting for all that JavaScript to come along later and fill it with the actual content, the products, the text, everything.
Exactly. That disconnect right there is the reason so many complex JavaScript sites have trouble getting indexed properly. You're essentially gambling that Google will get to your content in that second rendering wave. And that's precisely why server-side rendering, or SSR, is so important. It's not just some technical buzzword, it's the fix. It delivers the finished page to everyone, users and bots, right from the start.
So, let's imagine Google can find your pages and it can render them perfectly. Fantastic. But now, how does it know which pages on your site are the most important? Well, that all comes down to your site's architecture and how you manage authority.
To get this, you have to understand the concept of link equity. The easiest way to think about it is like a plumbing system for your website. Every link from one page to another is a pipe, and it directs ranking power or authority through the system. A great architecture sends all that power straight to your most important pages. A messy one just lets it leak out all over the floor.
This leads to two main schools of thought. From a developer standpoint, silos just feel right. Everything is clean, hierarchical, and logically organized. But from an SEO data perspective, the hub-and-spoke model is way more powerful. It's specifically designed to collect all that link equity from related pages and funnel it back to a central pillar page, telling Google in no uncertain terms, hey, this page right here is the most important one on this topic.
Speaking of diluting power, this is a classic way sites shoot themselves in the foot without even realizing it. You look at this table and you see one page, but Google might see 4 different pages here, all with different URLs, all competing with each other and splitting their ranking power. The fix is so simple. A single rel canonical tag tells Google, hey, all of these are just copies. Send all the authority to this one master version. It's how you stop competing against yourself.
Okay, so this brings us to our final stop, and it's actually where the developer and the SEO finally find some common ground: Core Web Vitals. This is the spot where pure user experience metrics are now direct ranking signals.
Yeah, this is where our goals just perfectly overlap. As a developer, I care about largest contentful paint because a slow-loading main image creates a terrible user experience. And from the data side, I care because Google has told us it's a ranking factor. We're looking at the exact same problems, like shifting layouts or unresponsive buttons, just from different angles. At the end of the day, a bad score hurts users, and that, in turn, hurts rankings.
A perfect, super common example is CLS, cumulative layout shift. You know, when you're about to tap a button and the whole page jumps? So frustrating. And one of the biggest culprits is just an image that's been coded without height and width attributes. The browser has no idea how much space to save for it, so when it finally loads, bam, the whole layout shifts. It's a classic developer oversight.
But the modern fix is so simple and elegant, it's great. Instead of defining a fixed height and width, you can just use CSS to tell the container for the image what its aspect ratio should be. So, the browser reserves that perfectly shaped box right away before the image even starts to load. And just like that, the layout shift is gone. Problem solved for both of us.
Now here is a critical point that everyone needs to understand. Lab data, which is what you get from a tool like Lighthouse, is fantastic for debugging. It simulates a page load in a controlled environment. But field data, that comes from the Chrome User Experience Report, are crux. That's real data from real users on their real devices over 28 days. And guess which one Google uses for ranking? Yep, the real-world data.
So after all of this back and forth, what's the big takeaway? We arrive at the synthesis. The best technical SEO isn't about a developer fighting with an analyst. It's about collaboration, it's about a shared understanding that what is truly good for the user is almost always good for a search engine, as long as the search engine can actually see it.
So we want to leave you with one final question to take back to your teams. Ask yourselves, is our site built for our users, or is it built for crawlers? Because the real truth is, you can't truly succeed at technical SEO until you realize the answer has to be both. Thanks for watching.